Hashem. Toda Rabbah for being here live. Toda Rabbah again. Shalom, shalom. Rabbinate Miriam. Shalom, shalom. Rabbinate Shalva. We will resume our Niddah Limud. Toda Rabbah for taking the time to be here. So as I said before, I'm just saying again for the recording, for those who will be watching the replay, Betulah Hashem, I am using an external monitor, so my screen is not working, so I'm connected to a monitor. So if you see me looking down, I have to look at the monitor to see. But we will do the best we can, and we will start the limud. Now, the last few times we have been reading, as I stated, we will be going back and forth between the Mishnah elucidated and the Talmud Yerushalmi, Niddah. So for the past 2 weeks, we were in the Mishnah elucidated chapters 2 and 3, and we're actually returning now to Talmud Yerushalmi for those who have the book to be able to follow along, and we will be in Halakha 2 and 3. Still in chapter 1. I have to make that distinction. In the Talmud, Niddah, we are in chapter 1. We will be reading Bezrat Hashem, Halakha 2 and 3 today. Last week and the week before, we were in Mishnah elucidated chapters 2 and 3. So there's the difference. Write it down if you have to, so we can stay aligned with the two texts that we are using and the nuances in their distinction. So one moment, let me just check. I think someone else is trying to enter. Okay. So I am going to pull it up on the screen from Safaria. Keep in mind, however, the translations will be a little different. I will be reading from the book, the physical text. Okay. Are you able to see the screen and the text on the screen? Okay. Baruch Hashem. All right. Uh, I'll have this. Okay, so I will be able to see the monitor and the book at the same time. Bezrat Hashem. All right. So Talmud Yerushalmi, Niddah, chapter 1, Halakha 2, as it reads. Mishnah, כיצד היה שאתה היית יושבת במיטה ועסוקה בטהרות פרשה ורעה דם היא טמאה וכולן טהורות אף על פי שאמרו תמיה מאלת אינה מונה אלא משעה שרת. רבי אליעזר אומר, 4 נשים דיין שעתן. בתולה וברת ומיניקה וזקנה. Let's see if that is what Safaria has. Okay, wonderful. All right. אמר רבי יהושע, אני לא שמעתי אלא בתולה, אבל הלכה כרבי אליעזר. הלכה, אמר רבי יהושע, אני לא שענתי אלא בתולה, אבל הלכה רבי אליעזר אין אומרים, מי שלא ראה את הלבנה. Turn the page. Toda Rabah for following along with me. Again, we have the translation from Safaria up on the screen. I am reading from the physical book as well as navigating, looking at the external monitor. So again, מי שלא ראה את הלבנה יבוא ויעיד, אלא אומרים, מי שראה את הלבנה יבוא ויעיד. אתה לא שמעת, אנ שמעתי, כל ימים שהיה רבי אליעזר קיים, הייתה הלכה כי רבי יהושע, מי שמת רבי אליעזר. הנהיג רבי יהושע הלכה כרבי אליעזר, מנה קיימין. אם בששמע רבי אליעזר מפי אחד, ורבי יהושע מפי שניים, בין בחיים בין לכאן מיתה. תנה הלכה כי רבי אליעזר כי הדדתנה. אחד אומר, שמעתי מפי שניים, ושניים אומרים, שמענו מפי אחד, יפה כוח האחד, ששמע מפי שניים, מכוח השניים, ששמעו מפי אחד, אלא כן ענן קיימין. בשווים זה שמע מפי אחד, וזה שמע מפי אחד, זה שמע מפי שניים, וזה שמע מפי שניים, בחייו לא ראה דעתו, לאחר מיתתו ראה דעתו, מחמית ממר, בשרעה דעתו, כהדתנה. See how it's coming up on the screen. Okay. Mhm. Okay, I'm just following along on the screen. We have to scroll a bit. Okay. Okay. Here we are. Right. Baruch Hashem. Toda Rabah. Shalom, shalom. Nasika Bina. Toda Rabah for joining.
Shalom, shalom. Sorry I'm so late.
No, 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 no. Right on time.
Ken. I slept in, so
Oh, as you should.
Baruch Hashem that the little one let me.
Yes, Baruch Hashem. Rest is sweet. That's the nectar of rejuvenation, especially for us mothers. Baruch Hashem. So we are in Talmud Yerushalmi. As I was explaining, unfortunately, it's a little awkward because my screen is out of commission. So I'm looking at an external monitor, and the camera's up here, and my monitor's down here. But we are reading again. If you remember, the last couple weeks we were reading out of Mishnah Elucidated, chapters 2 and 3. We're coming back to Talmud Yerushalmi, and we are in chapter 1, Halakha 2 and 3. So our focus will be Halakha 2 and 3. Bezrat Hashem will be able to get through all of it today. It is a little long, but we'll see what we can complete as time permits and aligns. Bezrat Hashem. So we are just finishing up Halakha 2. And I am reading from the book. I have the translation from Safaria. Always remember the translation from Safaria is a little different, but you can follow along for the Hebrew, and I will continue to read out of the book when we get to the translation and the commentary. Bezrat Hashem. Right. Or I'm on the right page again. Okay. So here we are on the screen. This is where we left off. Uh-oh. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh. Where were we? Okay. Arba'a Nashim. So the four women. ארבעה נשים שאמרו חכמים, דיין שעתן. I like that דיין. דיין שעתן. קדמן טמא למפרעה, חץ מתינוקת, שלא היה זמנה לראות, מפני שאין לה כתמין, דברי רבי מאיר, והחכמים אומרים, ארבעה נשים שאמרו חכמים, דיין שעתן, כתמן טמא למפרע, אבל תינוקת שהגיעה זמנה לראות כתמה כי ראייתה. מה ראייתה דיה שעתה, אף כתמה דיה שעתה. אמר רבי ינאי מפני ששרפה מצוי. את אמר דיה שעתה, אלו שאין שרפן מצוי, לא כל שכן מכאן שראה דעותו. Alright, so I will go back for the translation. Okay, and you can read along with Safari's translation, but I will be reading in the book. Halakha 2. The previous Mishnah taught that if a woman had a fixed period and discovers blood at the expected time, she is not considered tameh retroactively. The Mishnah now elaborates. What is an illustration of the law that it suffices for her to be considered tameh from her time of discovering blood? Suppose a woman was sitting on a couch and handling tohorot. She left the couch and the tohorot, and she then discovered blood. If this woman has a fixed period, the law is that she is tameh, but all of the objects, the couch and the tahorot, are tahor. An additional law relating to the 24 hours of retroactive tumah. Okay, we have some joining. Baruch Hashem, welcome back, Rabbanit Shalva. Welcome back to the room. And Toda Rabbah, Shalom, Shalom, Akoti Eshula. Thank you for your time joining us this morning. So we are in Talmud Yerushalmi, Niddah, chapter 1, Halakha 2 and 3 will be our focus for today. This is a departure from the Mishnah, chapters 2 and 3 that we were exploring for the past 2 or 3 weeks. We are coming back to the Talmud Yerushalmi text. So as I've said before, I will alternate throughout the course of this series of Limudim between the two texts. So now we're back in Talmud Yerushalmi. Halakha 2. An additional law relating to the 24 hours of retroactive tumah. And I'm reading from the book as well as looking at the external monitor. An additional law relating to the 24 hours of retroactive tumah. Even though the sages said that a woman conveys tumah for 24 hours prior to her discovery of blood, she counts her Niddah days only from the time that she actually discovered the blood. The Mishnah now lists certain exceptions to the law that a woman who finds blood is tameh retroactively for 24 hours. Rabbi Eliezer says, in the case of 4 women, it suffices for them to be considered tameh from their time of discovering blood. A virgin, a pregnant woman, a nursing woman, and an old woman. One moment, please. I have to get the door. Total Rabbi. Rabbi Eliezer says, in the case of 4 women, it suffices for them to be considered tameh from their time of discovering blood. A virgin, a pregnant woman, a nursing woman, and an old woman. Zakena. A different opinion. Rabbi Yehoshua said, I heard this law from my teachers only in regard to a virgin, not in regard to the other 3 women listed by Rabbi Eliezer. The Mishnah concludes, but the Halakha follows Rabbi Eliezer that none of the 4 women are retroactively tameh. Okay. So I'm going to go to some of the footnotes for the commentary for clarification. The vaginal surface is somewhat corrugated, and I'm reading directly from the text, from the commentary. So excuse the anatomical specificity of some of the language. These are not my words. This is from the text in the commentary. The vaginal surface is somewhat corrugated. A proper examination involves inserting the cloth into the vaginal canal and then carefully wiping it against the sides of the canal so that the entire surface of the creased tissues is examined. We are therefore concerned that a woman before cohabitation might rush and not insert the examination cloth into the vaginal folds and creases. Since a rushed examination might miss some traces of blood that may be present in the vaginal folds, we cannot rely on an examination before cohabitation to narrow the window of uncertainty surrounding the tohorot that a woman handled before the examination. The reference here is to a woman who has a fixed period, about whom Mishnah 1 stated that her time suffices, according to all the Tanaim. According to the view of Beit Shammai in the Mishnah, this applies to all women. According to the conclusion of the Gemara, the tohorot mentioned here must be either sacrificial foods, kodesh, or ordinary foods prepared according to the standards of katat, water, because a nidah's retroactive tumah affects only such foods and not terumah or chulin, even if the chulin was prepared according to the standards of kodesh. Since it suffices for her to be considered tameh from her time of discovering blood, she is considered to have been tahor at the time she handled the tohorot. Thus, they never contracted tumah. So just to be clear, since it suffices for her to be considered tameh from her time of discovering blood, she is considered to have been tahor, pure, at the time she was handling the tohorot. Thus, they never contracted tumah, impurity. The Mishnah now refers back to the case of a woman who does not have a fixed period, and it elaborates on the ruling of the sages in Mishnah 1. Under Torah law, a Niddah can purify herself by immersing in a mikveh 7 days after her discharge began, assuming that her flow has stopped by the end of the 7th day. Our Mishnah teaches that these 7 days begin from when the woman discovers the blood and not from 24 hours beforehand. Now, this ruling seems obvious. The woman's retroactive tumah is a rabbinic decree to act stringently with regard to tohorot. Why would we think that the woman can be lenient and start her 7-day count a day earlier, since there is only a possibility that she became tameh on that previous day? The answer is that the Mishnah is teaching that she need not even be concerned that her 7 Niddah days may have begun the previous day. If she would have to take this possibility into account, she would not know where she is up in her Niddah Zivah cycle, since it may have begun when she found the blood, or it may have begun earlier. The Mishnah thus teaches that she need not take the possibility of an earlier start into account, and she may assume, when counting the days of her Niddah Zivah cycle, that she did not become a Niddah until she actually found the blood. The next Mishnah will explain the precise meaning of these terms in this context. In the case of an ordinary woman who is expected to discharge blood, her chazakah of tahara is fairly weak. We must therefore suspect that the blood that she found now was actually discharged earlier. The women listed here, by contrast, the 4 women specified, are not expected to discharge blood at all. Therefore, their previous chazakah of tahara, which is a strong chazakah, prevails until the actual time the blood was found. A virgin, a woman who has never experienced a discharge of blood, has an even stronger chazakah of tahara than the other 3 women, being the pregnant woman, the breastfeeding woman, and the zakena, the elder woman, who experienced discharges of blood sometime in the past. Rabbi Yehoshua therefore argues that the other 3 women are retroactively tameh, even though a virgin is not. According to some commentaries, this is a continuation of Rabbi Yehoshua's statement. As we will see in the Gemara, Rabbi Yehoshua changed his original position and ruled in accordance with Rabbi Eleazar's view. Others maintain that this line of the Mishnah is not a quotation of Rabbi Yehoshua, but a ruling by the Mishnah itself against Rabbi Yehoshua's view, and that the retraction mentioned in the Gemara occurred after the discussion in this Mishnah. So we continue. The Mishnah stated, Rabbi Yehoshua said, I heard this law from my teachers only in regard to a virgin, but not in regard to the other three women listed by Rabbi Eliezer. But the Halakha follows Rabbi Eliezer in regard to all four women. A Baraita records Rabbi Eleazar's response to Rabbi Yehoshua. We do not say someone who did not see the new moon should come and testify that he did not see it. Rather, we say someone who saw the new moon should come and testify that he saw it. Let me see how that looks on Safari. Just a moment. Just want to see how Safari translated it.
It was at the top of this, at the top. It was right at the top of that paragraph.
Oh, Toda
Kane.
Wait. Yes. Okay. One does not say somebody who did not see the new moon should come and testify. Of course, it actually in the text only says Levana, the moon. It doesn't say new moon, but we'll continue. One does not say somebody who did not see the new moon should come and testify, but one says if somebody saw the new moon, he should come and testify. Hmm. Okay, well, we'll wait to go into that when we do our decoding. Right now, we're just collecting information, as my master says. Take the information. All right. I'm going to go back to the book. Even though I do think it's interesting to keep in mind on Safaria, they're translating her sap. I think that's interesting. So I will make a mental bookmark to come back to that in a minute because I don't think it's translated in that way in this volume. Nonetheless, similarly, although you, Rabbi Yehoshua, did not hear from your teachers about the other three women, I did hear about them from my teachers, and your failure to hear about them does not undermine the authenticity of what I heard. The Baraita continues. All the days that Rabbi Eleazar was alive, the law was in accordance with the ruling of Rabbi Yehoshua. After Rabbi Eleazar's passing, Rabbi Yehoshua instituted that the law should follow Rabbi Eleazar. The Gemara analyzes the circumstances that led Rabbi Yehoshua to follow Rabbi Eleazar's opinion after his death. With what are we dealing? From whom did Rabbi Eleazar hear that the law applies to all four women, and from whom did Rabbi Yehoshua hear that the law applies only to a virgin? If Rabbi Eleazar had heard his ruling from one of his teachers, and Rabbi Yehoshua had heard his ruling from two of his teachers, then both during Rabbi Eleazar's lifetime and after his passing, the law should accord with the ruling of Rabbi Yehoshua, because this was the ruling of the majority. And if the opposite is true, and Rabbi Yehoshua had heard his ruling from one of his teachers, and Rabbi Eleazar had heard his ruling from two of his teachers, then both during Rabbi Eleazar's lifetime and after his passing, the law should accord with the ruling of Rabbi Eleazar, because this was the ruling of the majority. This is as the Baraita taught. If one scholar says, I heard the ruling from two of my teachers, and two scholars say, we heard our ruling from one of our teachers, The authority of the one scholar who heard his ruling from two of his teachers is greater than the authority of the two who heard their ruling from only one of their teachers. So I want to pause here and go into a more literal, exact translation, word for word. As we know, famously, in these translations, we can often see, although it's not delineated here on Safaria, we know that typically there's information that's added. And you can usually see this. Yes, Achoti Shula. I see your hand.
Shalom, shalom, Toda. I just want to be clear that when it says a virgin, it's speaking of the virgin who has not yet reached menstruation.
We're actually going to go into that
Oh,
in
okay.
Halakha 3.
Okay.
So there's three types of virgins. So
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
we're getting into
Toda.
that in the next Halakha.
Toda.
I just want to pause to and see, this is why reading the text for yourself, mastering the Hebrew is so imperative. And looking at the different volumes, this is also why I just in general very much prefer the hard copy, the physical, tangible books, because we see Safaria, we love Safaria for its convenience, its compilation, its accessibility. But the deeper you go, the more you know, we see that I won't say too much, but I would just try. I'm not sure. Man, I wish you could see. Well, it's a little hard with the monitor the way it is. Oh, where are we? Are you seeing the English or the okay, here we go. So as you see here, some of the words are bolded and some of them are not. We know famously when we're looking at translations of this sort, the words that are bolded are the ones that are actually there in the Hebrew. We know the words that are not bolded are words that they have added. Unfortunately, Safaria, for whatever reason, does not even make this distinction clear. So to read from a more literal translation, we're going into Rabbi Lazar's lifetime and after his passing. Whether in life or after death, the law should be like Rabbi Eleazar, like this which was taught. So, Echad Omer, one says, Shama'ati mipi shenaim. I heard from the mouth of two. U shenaim omrim, and two say, Shamanu mipi echad. We heard from the mouth of one. Yipek hoach ha-echad. Stronger, hoach, power, strength. Stronger is the power of one. Sheshama mipi shanayim, who heard from the mouth of two. Mikoach hashanayim sheshameu mipi echad. Then the power of the two who heard from the mouth of one. Rather, thus we maintain, elakin anan kayamin beshavin, in equals. Ze shama mipi echad This one heard from the mouth of one. Weze shama mipi echad, and this one heard from the mouth of one. Ze shama mipi shenaim, this one heard from the mouth of two. Weze shama mipi shenaim, and this one heard from the mouth of two. Bechayav lo ra'a da'ato. In his lifetime, he did not see his opinion accepted. Le'achar mitato ra'a da'ato. After his death, he saw his opinion accepted. So I just thought that was interesting because even though in the translation it says two teachers, two scholars, one scholar, two teachers, I just think it's interesting that in the actual Hebrew, it doesn't say teacher or scholar. And it speaks about the two, from the mouth of two and from the mouth of one. Also, when we think about how it is sufficient for the woman's timing, her timing of discovery, to be trusted in regards to her tahor or tameh status and the retroactive application of tameh. It says multiple times that her timing suffices. But the word that is used is dayan, which has connections with dayanim, the judges, dinim, judgments. So it seems to be saying, trust her judgment. Her judgment of her timing of discovery is sufficient. Judgment. We know blood itself comes from gevura, judgment. Trusting her sight, her time of discovery, her knowing of her body to know when the blood was released. I think that's important to mention. Also, when it says the mouth of one or the mouth of two, I am reminded, even in Sha'ar Mamre Ghazal, that we understand the mystery of the woman as the creature with two mouths. So I would just leave that there. I just thought that was interesting reading the text. So yes. Where are we back in the book? Okay, we heard, rather, we must be dealing with a situation in which the two teachings were taught by an equal number of scholars. Either this one, Rabbi Yehoshua, heard his ruling from one, and that one heard from one, or this one heard his ruling from two, and that one heard from two. The traditions thus carry equal weight in their provenances. Why then did Rabbi Yehoshua change his opinion to rule in favor of Rabbi Eleazar's view? The Gemara explains, during Rabbi Eleazar's lifetime, Rabbi Yehoshua did not view Rabbi Eleazar's opinion as being correct. But after Rabbi Eleazar's death, Rabbi Yehoshua viewed his opinion as being correct. We didn't see all that in the actual Hebrew, but it's okay. The Gemara asks, what did Rabbi Yehoshua see that led him to view Rabbi Eleazar's opinion as being correct? The Gemara answers, after Rabbi Eleazar's death, Rabbi Yehoshua saw that Rabbi Eleazar's opinion was supported by that which was taught in the following Baraita. Regarding the four women about whom the sages said it suffices for them to be considered tameh from their time of discovering blood, their stains are nonetheless tameh retroactively. So I will go to the footnotes and read some of the commentary. Read that. Through most of the Tanaic and Talmudic periods, Rosh Chodesh was sanctified by the court based on the testimony of witnesses who saw the new moon. Rabbi Eliezer uses the example of witnesses to the new moon to illustrate the idea that one's person Remnant Shalom. She says she was trying to get back in. I don't see her now. Betulah Hashem. Maybe she will try again. So again, we know in the verse it actually did not technically say the new moon, but it said, we see that it did not say the new moon. It actually just said Levana, the moon. Nonetheless, during the Tanaic and Talmudic periods, Rosh Chodesh was sanctified by the court based on the testimony of witnesses who saw the new moon. Rabbi Eliezer uses the example of witnesses to the new moon to illustrate the idea that one person's lack of knowledge does not call into question the accuracy of the knowledge possessed by someone else. In the Mishnah's case, Rabbi Yehoshua's absence of knowledge regarding the law of the other three women does not call into question the accuracy of what Rabbi Eliezer heard. We follow a teaching that originated with two scholars over a teaching that originated with only one scholar. Even if these two scholars were quoted by only one person, and the one scholar was quoted by two people, certainly then we must follow a teaching that originated with two scholars over a teaching that originated with one scholar when each teaching was quoted by only one scholar, Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Eliezer had ruled in the Mishnah that if one of them finds blood internally, one of these four types of women delineated, we may presume that the discharge occurred just before she found the blood. But if she finds a stain whose appearance makes it clear that it was not deposited on the garment just before it was found, Rabbi Eliezer agrees that we must suspect that if she had examined her garment earlier, she would have found the stain at that time. Turn the page. Regarding the four women about whom the sages said that it suffices for them to be considered tameh from their time of discovering blood, their stains are nonetheless tameh retroactively, except for a young girl whose time to discharge blood has not arrived, because she has no tuma of stains whatsoever, even going forward. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. But the sages say, regarding the four women about whom the sages said that it suffices for them to be considered tameh from their time of discovering blood, their stains are tameh retroactively, except for the young girl whose time to discharge blood has arrived, whose stain is treated just like her actual discharge of blood. That is, just as in the case of a discharge of blood by this girl, it suffices for her to be considered tameh from her time of discovering the blood going forward, but she is not tameh retroactively. So too, in the case of a stain found by this girl, it suffices for her to be considered tameh from her time of finding the stain and so on, and she is not tameh retroactively. In order to show how this Braita supports Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, the Gemara first explains why a girl whose time to discharge blood has arrived is tameh if she finds a stain, according to the sages in the Braita, unlike a girl whose time to discharge blood has not yet arrived. Rabbi Yanai said it is because her menstruation is expected. She is therefore tameh from the time the stain was found and on, even though she has never discharged blood before. This is different from a girl whose time to discharge blood has not yet arrived, who is not expected to menstruate, and who is therefore not tameh if she finds a blood stain on her clothing. The Gemara now explains how the Baraita supports Rabbi Eleazar's view over Rabbi Yehoshua's. Now, if regarding a young girl whose time to discharge blood has arrived, whose menstruation is expected, you say that if she experienced a blood discharge, it suffices for her to be considered tameh from her time of discovering the blood. Then in the case of these other three women, a pregnant woman, a nursing woman, and a zakena, an elder woman, whose menstruation is not expected, it is not certain that it suffices for them to be considered tameh from their time of discovering blood. The Gemara concludes, it is from here that Rabbi Yehoshua saw fit to change his opinion and to view Rabbi Eleazar's opinion as being correct. Again, this is why I'm so glad we are actually viewing both texts at the same time. The nuances are incredible. I'm just going to reread what's on the screen as well because it is interesting in its expression. What did he see to say that he became convinced of his opinion? As it was stated, the stains of all four categories of women about whom the sages said that their timings are exact cause retroactive impurity, except for a girl who is too young to menstruate, for that one has no stains, the words of Rabbi Meir. But the sages say, for all four categories of women about whom the sages said that their timings are exact, their stains cause retroactive impurity, except for a girl about to start to menstruate, for her stains start with her menstruation. Since if she sees blood, her timing is exact, so also for her stain, her timing. Rabbi Yanai said, because her sap is frequent. If the timing of one whose sap is frequent is exact, the others whose sap is not so frequent, so much more. By this reason, he became convinced of his opinion. Let me see what they're talking about. Seraph is tree sap. It is an appropriate image for body fluids before the discovery of the circulation of blood. There would have been reason to make the impurity of the girl in puberty retroactive, since Rabbi Yehoshua agrees that in her case there is no retroactivity, there is no reason to extend retroactivity to the other three cases. Okay, so now we're moving to Halakha 3. Mishnah. Ezohi Betulah. Choshelo ra'a dam miyameha. Afa'al pi nesua. Me'uberet mishe yuda'a uvra. Menika ad shetigmol ed bena. Natina bena lo menika. U gamal latu o shemet. Okay. Let's skip ahead a couple of lines. Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Omer. מטמא מעת לעת וחכמים אומרים דיה שעתה. Halakha. זוהי בתולה, etc., etc. הן היא מתניתה, כל שלא ראה דם נידה מימיך, ואף על פי נשואה, בתולה לדמים אמרו. אבל לא בתולה לי בתולים. פעמים שהיא בתולה לדמים, ואינה בתולה לי בתולים. פעמים שהיא בתולה לי בתולים, ואינה בתולה לדמים, בתולה לדמים בשרת, ואחר כך נישאת. בתולה לי בתולים בשנישאת, ואחר כך רעת. תענאי, 3 בתולות הן. בתולת אדם, בתולת שכמה, ובתולת הארץ. בתולת אדם, כל שלא נבעלה מימיך. בתולת שקמה, כל שלא נגזצה מימיך. בתולת הארץ, כל שלא נחרץ בה מימימה. רבן שמעון בן גמליאל אומר, כל שאין בחרץ. Interesting. So reading in Safaria, Halakha, what is a virgin? Etc., etc. So is the Mishnah, anyone who never did menstruate. They spoke of one virgin for blood, not one virgin for sexual relations. Again, these are the words on the screen. These are not my words. So another translation says, even if married, we'af alpi nesua, Betulah ledamim amru. They said, a virgin with respect to blood, aval lo betulah li vetulim, but not with respect to virginity. Interesting. She is virginal for blood if she started to menstruate before marrying. She is virginal for sexual relations if she married before menstruating. It was stated there are 3 virgins, a human virgin, a virgin sycamore, and virgin soil. A human virgin who never had intercourse, a virgin sycamore, which was never cut, virgin soil, which was never plowed. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, that which has no groove. So, continuing to read out of the text. I'll use the translation here in the book. The Mishnah stated, who is considered a virgin? Any girl who has never discharged blood in her life, even if she is married. When a woman marries, she normally bleeds as a result of her hymen being ruptured. The Gemara therefore explains what the Mishnah means when it refers to a girl who never discharged blood even though she is married. This is what the Mishnah means. Any girl who has never discharged Niddah, uterine blood, in her life, even if she is married, and has experienced hymenal bleeding. A Baraita that elaborates on this idea. The sages here referred to a virgin with regard to Niddah blood, although she might not be a virgin with regard to the hymen, the vetulim. For a girl can sometimes be a virgin with regard to Niddah blood, but not a virgin with regard to the hymen. And she can sometimes be a virgin with regard to the hymen, but not a virgin with regard to Niddah blood. The Baraita explains, a girl is only a virgin with regard to Niddah blood in a case where she already married and only later experienced a discharge of Mishnah blood. She is only a virgin with regard to the hymen in a case where she already experienced a discharge of blood and only later married. A Braita lists various types of virgins. A Braita taught there are three things referred to as virgins: a virgin untouched by a man, a virgin sycamore, and virgin soil. Betulah Adam, a virgin among men, among mankind. Betulat Shikma, the virgin of the sycamores. Ubetulat Haaretz, the virgin of the land, or virgin earth, uncultivated soil. So let me just go for another translation. We want to see as many perspectives as possible because of the intricacy of this particular halakha and its potentially triggering or controversial aspects. The virgin of a human, anyone who has not had intercourse from her days. Betulat Adam kol shelo nivala mi yamecha. The virgin of a sycamore, anyone that was not cut from her days. So I'm really emphasizing the direct literal translation and the exact words. Betulat shikma kol shelo nitzetsa mi yamecha. Anyone that was not cut from her days. They're talking about a sycamore. Interesting, right? The virgin of the land, anyone in which a furrow was not cut from her days. A furrow. Betulat haaretz, kol shelo necheratz ba mi yamecha. A furrow can also represent a trench, which is something that comes up often in Mishnah Peah, but we'll circle back to that soon. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel specifies Chol she'en ba cheretz, anyone in which there is no furrow. So again, just collecting information, taking information. Keep all of this in mind. So I'm going to go to the commentary. The Bereta elaborates, a woman considered a virgin untouched by a man as long as she has never in her life cohabited with a man. The term virgin is not used here in its usual sense of a woman who has never cohabited. Rather, it is used in the sense of pristine, referring to a girl who has never discharged uterine blood. This is the point at which we may assume that she will no longer discharge uterine blood, speaking about the pregnant woman from the time when her fetus becomes noticeable. Regarding the nursing woman and the time that she is considered to have begun her period, the Mishnah will immediately discuss whether this means until she actually weans her child or until the time for weaning, quoted here as 24 months, 2 years, even though we have to remember traditionally and in most indigenous societies, and actually the UN, the United States nations, The United Nations, even now, specifies that the worldwide average recommended age of breastfeeding is between 3 and 4 years. So that's a worldwide average. But here it says 24 months. The time of weaning. In all these cases, the mother stopped nursing before 24 months have elapsed since the birth. Going back again to the example of the nursing woman, the one who weans her child, or the one who gave her child to a wet nurse and the wet nurse weaned him prematurely, or chas v'shalom, the child died before 2 years. So that's what that footnote is clarifying there. Going back to the virgin, where it says any girl who has never discharged Niddah, uterine blood in her life, even if she is married and has experienced hymenal bleeding, the footnote here in commentary says, even if she bled as a result of her hymen breaking at the time of her marriage, she is still considered a virgin with regard to the law of retroactive tumah, because we can still presume that her menstrual cycle has not begun. Neither her hymen breaking nor the accompanying bleeding removed the girl's status as a virgin with regard to Niddah blood until she experienced her actual first menstrual period. Once she experienced the discharge of blood, her menstrual cycle is assumed to have begun, regardless of her marital status. From then on, whenever she experiences a blood discharge, she becomes tameh retroactively for 24 hours. Nevertheless, she is still considered to be a virgin, in which she is permitted to marry a Kohen Gadol, and that her ketubah will be 200 zuz, the bride price of a virgin. Speaking of the virgin who has never in her life cohabited, who is considered untouched, this has two possible ramifications, the commentary says. The first relates to a Kohen Gadol, who is commanded to marry specifically a virgin. This Baraita maintains that the prohibition of a non-virgin to a Kohen Gadol applies specifically to a girl whose virginity has been removed by a man. If her virginity was removed not by means of cohabitation, meaning if it was removed surgically or otherwise, or if it was removed, chas v'shalom, through cohabitation with an animal, I'm just reading the text as it is, then she remains permitted to a Kohen Gadol on a biblical level. The second ramification relates to the amount of the woman's ketubah payment. If a man marries a virgin, he must guarantee her in the ketubah contract a payment of at least 200 zuz in the event that he divorces her or dies before her. If the woman is not a virgin when he marries her, he need not guarantee her more than 100 zuz. The Baraita teaches that if her virginity was removed not by means of cohabitation, she remains entitled to 200 zuz, the bride price of a virgin. Oof. The Baraita thus reflects specifically the view of Rabbi Meir in the Mishnah in Ketubot 1 and 3, that a woman whose virginity has been removed without cohabitation retains the right to a ketubah payment of 200 zuz. All right. Now, some commentary on the virgin sycamore that has never been cut. It was common to cut sycamore trees in order to stimulate a thickening of the trunk. When someone buys a sycamore, he normally prefers a virgin sycamore, which can be cut and thickened, as opposed to a sycamore that has already been thickened and therefore cannot be thickened much further. Some interesting implications here encoded. Accordingly, the Baraita here teaches that if a sales agreement stipulated that a virgin sycamore was being sold, the buyer can insist that this condition be fulfilled. We're just collecting information. We'll go into the decoding Betulah Hashem in next next session. Bli Nader. Alternatively, the Baraita refers to a law taught by the Mishnah in Shevi'it 4 and 5. One of the Shemitah prohibitions is pruning grapevines to stimulate growth. We can find this in Wayikra, Leviticus 25 and 4. Similarly, it is forbidden to cut a virgin sycamore to stimulate further growth. An old sycamore tree which has already been cut may be cut again in Shemitah because this will not stimulate further growth. Now, regarding the virgin ha'aretz, the virgin of the soil, the significance of virgin soil or virgin land is with regard to the law of Eglah Arufah, described in Devarim, Deuteronomy 21, 1 through 9. If someone is found murdered between two cities, and it is not known why the murderer or who the murderer is, the Torah prescribes that the elders of the nearest city decapitate a heifer in a rock-hard valley, i.e., a valley with virgin soil, uncultivated, unpenetrated soil. Kind of reminds us of the karka'ah a little bit. The Baraita thus defines the term virgin soil. Alternatively, if someone sells a piece of land stipulating that it is virgin soil, the buyer may insist that he be given land that was never tilled, since virgin soil produces abundant, high-quality produce. Now, so I thought this translation was interesting as well. The piece of land considered virgin soil as long as it has never been tilled. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, now remember, it was earlier translated as, let's see it, hold on, make sure I have it right. About the land which was never plowed, land which has no groove or trenches. There was another word. Let me go back. The cheretz. What did they say for the cheretz? There was another word they used, but I can't find it right now. So here, there's a little nuance in the translation that says, this land considered virgin soil, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, says, as long as it does not contain shards of clay. So here on Safaria, it says, virgin soil never plowed, which has no groove. And here in the physical book, the Schottenstein edition translation says, as long as it does not contain shards of clay. The text of the Baraita found in Tosefta and in Midrash Shocher Tov reads clay. The term charetz found here is an alternative spelling of the word, which is cheres. So clay, cheres, is chet, resh, samech. The term here that we see in this Mishnah is cheretz, chet, resh, zadeh sofit. An alternative spelling of the word. The absence of man-made materials in the ground, even clay, which lasts a long time, makes it likely that the soil was never broken. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is not disagreeing with the Tanna Kama. Rather, he is elaborating on the Tanna Kama's statement by explaining that one can determine whether the soil has been tilled by examining the contents of the soil. Now, we've spoken before about the interesting differences between the Talmud Yerushalmi and the Talmud Bavli. Some differences more controversial than others. But here in the commentary, I'm just reading as it is on the page. It specifies that Bavli, in the Bavli Talmud, it notes that this Baraita, which lists only 3 types of virgins, seems to be contradicted by our Mishnah, being the one here in Talmud Yerushalmi, seems to be contradicted by our Mishnah, which speaks of a 4th type of virgin, a virgin with regard to Niddah blood. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, cited in Bavli, answers that the Baraita refers only to those things that are generally referred to as virgins without the need for a specifying modifier. When speaking of women, the unmodified term virgin is normally understood, unless otherwise indicated, as referring to virginity of the hymen, not to virginity with regard to Niddah blood. If someone wishes to refer to virginity with regard to blood, this will normally be specified. Our Mishnah, for example, indicates its intent by explicitly stating what is a virgin, one who has never in her life discharged blood. Thus, virginity with regard to blood does not meet the criterion for inclusion in the Baraita's listing. See Bavli. Now, that was interesting. Let's see what time we have here. Oh, it looks like we have completed our hour. I was going to go further into Halakha 3, which is very long. Let's see. Ooh. Pretty interesting. But it is a lot of text and a lot of commentary. So we can stop here and finish this Bezrat Hashem next time, or I could just try to read it quickly through in English, go through some of the commentary, and then next time we can start the decoding process. So let me know what you all would like to do. Continue reading the rest of Halakha 3 in English, or wait till next week. And if we continue reading in English today, then we'll go into the decoding of all the different types of virgins and the blood and the sycamores and all that next week. So let me know. We'll take a vote quickly. I see Nasika Bina with a thumbs up. Was that a thumbs up for finishing reading this next week?
And it was for today, but that's only if a Kotsi Shula is available to listen in as well.
Okay. All right. Toda Rabbah. So we have Akoti Shula. We're gonna weigh in, and Akoti Miriam, Rabbinate Miriam, if you're available, let me know.
Well, I actually put to wait until next week because of the size of the read, to be able to keep it all together.
Okay.
It's that was a lot to listen. I'm still on the versions.
Right.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
I've got my Mishnah here. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back and read this again.
Yes. Okay.
So
Right. I actually I felt that way. I was like, we might even before class started, I was looking, I even put a little asterisk in the book. I was like, we might end up stopping here because it is very weighty, even controversial, and even going forward, it gets it gets even more interesting. So it's a lot to digest. It's always best to digest in brevity, in moderation. So, Baruch Hashem, we will resume next week, finishing Halakha 3 and hopefully starting the decoding process. Toda Rabbi, Toda Rabbi. And I see Rabbi Miriam is in agreement. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen. Amen. Toda Rabbi. Rabbaniyot for joining today. This was very interesting. Lots to process. Woo. Mm, the virgins. So looking forward to next week with you ladies. And for those of us, here in the United States, be warm, be safe in the snowstorm that they're talking about. And yes, Baruch Hashem, Hashem be with us. Toda Rabah, Shavua Tov. It'll be Shabbat Shalom for our Shabbat Shel Hatenaim later on this evening. So Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, Yom Tov, and I can't wait to rejoin and reconvene with you all next week. Bezrat Hashem. Toda Rabah.
Toda Rabba.
תודה רבה, אמא דקה, תודה רבה.